Oh, hey folks, how you doing? Good afternoon. It's Sunday. What I wanted to do was to tell you a story that I just saw on YouTube, and we found out it was a real one. And by far, without any equal for miles, I have found the greatest survival story of World War II. There is nothing even close, which is why I'm explaining this to you and telling you about it. In World War II, they had what they call flying fortresses. These were B-52 bombers. And they were 4-engine heavy bomber, and they had difficulty fighting off German fighters. Both the Focke-Wulf 190 and the Messerschmitt 109. And these fighters used to rip them apart. The one spot on a B-17 that you did not want to be in was the tail gunner place, because the tail gunner was separated by about 30 feet to the next person. Next crewman who could help you or assist you. And you were the last to know if there were problems. And I forget the name, Andy Rooney, I think was his name. I forget the newsman. I thought it was Andy Rooney. He told a story about when he went into a bar, and it was frequented by military personnel. And they were just kind of, shooting the shit. And he was something like 5'2" or something. He wasn't very tall, because the ball turret, that was ball turret, sorry. This man was the tail gunner. Just to finish that little thing out, the ball turret was the worst, because if you came in for any kind of a crash landing, you were dead. They had many stories. The ball turret was a little thing that hung down below the plane. It was a glass and metal thing that had a machine gun that turned 360 degrees. That was the worst, because it would crush on impact if you came in and your tires went flat or something like that. You were a dead duck. And Andy Rooney, I think was his name, he was a newscaster, nice guy. And he said that they were shooting the shit in a bar, and one of the guys noticed another guy that was kind of short, and he said, "Hey, would you like to switch positions with me?" And the guy said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "I'm an airman too." He says, "I'm a ball turret gunner." And he goes, "You go straight to hell." And they didn't want any part of it. It was they couldn't even move if their ball track that helped them move, if it jammed, they were dead. These men suffered incredibly, all of them. And but this was a tail gunner, and his name was Eugene Moran. As of 2023, as if they shouldn't have made a movie about this, for God's sakes. I guess they thought that they didn't believe it. However, on his plane, when it was shot down, everyone was dead except for one of the other crew. I forgot who he was, but he was a mid-waist gunner or something like that. And he survived. He jumped out of the plane and became a prisoner of war as well. And he was able to confirm the story, at least the part where he went down in the plane. Because when you go down in the plane, you're a dead duck. But thanks to his survival, they were able to tell the tale, which is a true one. Eugene Moran was a tail gunner, and unfortunately, he had Messerschmitts that were ripping apart his plane. And the plane broke in two, and he had a small amount of the fuselage and the tail fin and the rudder. And if I can find it, I will show it to you. Stand by. Fortunately, I found this. I don't know what it is. We'll listen to it together. And then I will expound on this and explain to you why, in detail, more or less. This was the greatest act of survival that I have ever heard of. And that's just me. I mean, you know, I've listened to these kind of things all the time. Not all the time, but, you know, from time to time. And I'm somewhat, not exactly an authority on World War II, but I don't lack knowledge on World War II. It's one of the greatest learning tools you could ever have. So let's listen to it and see what it says.
43. 24,000 feet above Europe. German fighters open fire on AB-17 Flying Fortress. Then the impossible happens.
Ricky Ticky
the
Tick.
bomber is torn completely in half.
That was the name of the plane.
19-year-old Tail Gunner Staff Sergeant Eugene Moran is trapped inside the broken tail section. Both of his arms are shattered by cannon fire. His parachute is useless. There is no pilot, no controls, only twisted metal falling nearly 5 miles toward the ground. Everyone expects him to die, but instead of crashing straight down, the broken tail section begins
the nerve to open fire,
slowing its fall. When it finally slams into the frozen countryside, local civilians rush to the wreckage. They expect bodies. Instead, they find Eugene Moran still alive. One of the most unbelievable survival stories of World War II. November 29th, 1943.
Okay.
24th.
So it's not saying very much, so I will have to fill you in. To survive a fall, and by the way, in the 2001 attack on the World Trade Center, there was also allusions to this too, of people surfing the collapsing wreckage and surviving. Although I had heard about it, but it was never confirmed. So something similar along that. They found 3 in World War II that were confirmed. And this Eugene Moran was one of the 3. It was called wreckage surfing. And it would possibly slow, depending on where you fell and how you fall and certain particulars. It was possible that you might survive. It only happened 3 times, so that should give you an idea. That in itself makes this worthy of a movie, as far as I can tell. It was made into a book called Tailspin, which is ridiculous. This should have been made into a movie. First of all, they bombed the living shit out of this town. And just to let you know, I collect German, what do they call those? I haven't done it in so long now. Death cards. And it was a comfort, and they weren't the only ones. Canadians actually did this through World War II, I believe. The French had a little form of it. And it was it's just like a newspaper material. And it just shows the person and the date of birth and death and who they were in the army or whatever. And some of those are worth a lot of money because, some of the people there are all sorts of different stories with that. And one thing you begin to notice right away is the youth that were in the German services. You could see how young these kids were. I mean, they looked like they were a little more than 13 years old, some of them. They were ridiculously young. But, I've heard thing or two on World War II. And since he crashed, it would be far better for him to be found by the military rather than the general public, because the general public had no mercy on these, pilots and bombardiers and waist gunners and from these bombers. They really did not like them at all. And they were, generally speaking, beaten to within an inch of their lives if they were found by the locals, the German locals, because the bombs had come down and just killed not just the bomb factories, but the truth is, and you can take it from me, it's much like the COVID-19. Don't believe what some Jew tells you, or some Catholic tells you, or some priest tells you or some doctor tells you. You don't do that. You listen to me. That's why you come to this channel. I'm a form of a God. And that's why you come here. They said, now, in retrospect, in hindsight, these bombers, although they would like to glorify it and tell you that they put their bombs in the pickle barrel and all these NORAD bomb site improvements, they didn't do much. If you don't believe me, take a look at some of the death cards and you will see tens of thousands, if not more, of civilians who died, women, children, whole families that died miles away from targets, because the stress that these crews endured, being shot at, and the rest of it up there, they had to drop their bombs and go. They would like to tell you that the bombs found their targets, but I doubt that there were more than in the single digits that came within 200 yards of their target. That's just, and if you don't believe me, I will also offer you this. When they really wanted to bomb Schweinfurt, which was where they made all the ball bearings, Germany did, and that was necessary in virtually all, except for maybe guns. It was for everything from tanks to half tracks to everything else. You had to have ball bearings. And the Americans wanted to hit that. And since these bombs weren't going within 200 yards of their target, their desired target, they sent almost 400 or slightly over 400 of them, because it was a massive, intense effort to knock out these ball bearing factories. They had to send 400. That should give you all the proof that you need. There were a couple bigger ones that went to almost 1,000 B-17, and I think they had some Liberators in there and some B-24s and B-25s. They had to put massive things to get anything even close to the targets. That's just the simple truth, folks. You can believe me. You don't have to listen to anyone else. You tell them that you listen to a God and that he told you the truth. My dad was in World War II. He didn't really want to talk about it, although he was a tanker. Anyways, and got busted for drinking and stealing a Jeep, as far as I know, and coming back with a couple of women. And they put him on his knees because he got into a fight with a major, and my dad had his voice box knocked out. My dad could barely talk because he stepped back from a punch and it hit him in the larynx here. So he was laying there almost dying, and the major was punched, and the major punched him back, and he left and came back with 2 military police and said, if he makes one move, shoot him. And that was called summary execution. They did it all the time. Now, they did it in World War II to their own staff if the situation warranted it. So the lifespan was on average 15 missions. They had to do 25, I believe. But they were being shot down at an alarming rate. And it's a good thing for our boys that the jets, because they fitted these, Hitler decided to fit bombers first with jet engines, but that was a mistake. Had he 6 months or 5 months or 9 months earlier in the war, because they didn't come out until 44, but had they come out in 43 or early 44, it would have made a difference, because they were virtually untouchable. Not just because they could fly at 450 miles an hour and 500 miles an hour, but they could do it at level flight. Also, when to escape attack, they could go upward and make fantastic climb, where the P-51s, which were very fast too, they were also a 470 mile an hour plane, if not more. They could not do this, and they could not go upward. So they could, but they couldn't do it. None of them could do it. So if flown properly, and they had these other ones too that were just little. They looked like ridiculous. I'll show you them. It was called the Comet 163. I will give you a little bit on that, and then we'll go right back into the story. Well, I guess I'm wrong. It was actually a rocket-powered fighter. It looks to me like it's around 13 feet long. It may not be. It maybe is 14 feet long. And this was it right here. It was called the Comet 163. It used T-Stoff and F-Stoff for fuel, and it was extremely volatile. And if the two things touched when you were refilling, it would blow everything to kingdom come. So the only way they could fuel it is to send one truck, have the truck leave, and then send the second truck. This is an experimental fighter, and it carried about 45 to 50 seconds worth of fuel. That's it. It was designed to, because it had enormous climb rate. I'm not sure it's ever been defeated with a plane, because it was a rocket engine, and it was ridiculous. It got to 20,000 feet in just a matter of seconds. And what they did was, they did have a machine gun, but these things were so small that they ran out of fuel in around 50 seconds. It may be a little bit more than that, but it was in that range right there. And they tore through these B-17 bombers. But the problem was they went too fast, and they could not shoot more than one or two or three of them. Had they perfected this would have been the end of the 308th Air Wing very quickly, and the 101st Airborne and all that, any of them, that would have been done. Here it is. I'm going to let you listen to this.
Dude, the ME-163 is insane. I wish I could fly it in real life.
You sure about that? Yeah, it was fast. But so was your life expectancy. One fuel leak? Terrible landing gear. Hope you like crash landings. Oh, and the fuel? It could melt your skin. Still want to fly it?
Never mind. Dude, the ME-163 is insane.
Okay, well, that's not a very good description of it. We'll see if we can find a little bit something more on that in TikTok. That's about the size of it, really. There it is. It's rare footage. Okay, well, evidently didn't do much justice to this, but it was just a small little tiny aircraft, like a flying wing almost. When it took off, it did take off with wheels, but when it went up, as soon as it got 20 feet off the ground, they were instructed to pull a wooden handle, and the wheels would come off and bounce, and you had to be very careful, because if it hit the aircraft, it would explode, and it happened. So these B-17 crews, it was unbelievable for even these Comet pilots, because as soon as they went through the formations, their minute of fuel, or a minute and 10 seconds, I forget what it was very, very fleeting indeed. As soon as it was expired, they had to coast, and they had no landing gear. They had to land on a sled formation underneath. And they were sitting ducks. If any fighter pilot followed it down, they didn't have any means of propulsion. It was simply a glider. So this is how World War II was. It was far from perfected. So this B-17 pilot, Eugene, whatever his name is that I just said, Moran, was literally shot sitting in the thing there where the tail gun assembly with a little bit of the fuselage, and as he fell from the sky, his parachute was useless. It was all torn apart and bullets ripped through it. He knew he was going to die, obviously, and he just waited, and as he came down, the tail fin and the assembly kind of made it so that he fell less fast. He survived. I think I told you this already, and unfortunately, the townspeople found him, and he was extremely lucky because they beat you within an inch of your life. I have, in my collection, I have a nuts and bolts and a couple pieces of a Messerschmitt 109, and we trace back the bolts. It's to a crash landing of a German pilot named William Thummel, is what I believe, and he had a crash landing in his jet, and he barely survived because he landed in Normandy, and the French did not like, and this wasn't during the Normandy invasion, he just landed in Normandy at an earlier time or a later time, I don't remember. But the French had had enough of the Germans, and they beat him to within an inch of his life, but he survived the war. He's listed as one of the German Luftwaffe pilots. So I haven't checked it because it's been 15 years since I bought it. But I'm sure the numbers will line up. It had a little piece of the window also, and the Germans were way, way ahead of the American. The Americans had like those old, if you remember the cars from the 1970s, they used to have a little mini triangular window, and you'd open it up with this little latch, and it wasn't worth very much, and they'd always break. That's what the American pilots were using, stuff like that. The Germans had already had more like a home window that clamped down, much better. Anyways, yeah, I won't bore you with that. But anyways, one of the officers came over. They put him in a literal wooden cart. I believe it was a horse-drawn cart, but I can't be sure. But he was taken a while, and he suffered massive broken ribs. He had a chunk taken out of his head, which was bleeding, exposing the brain. His arms were hit when he was firing, and they were useless. And I'm trying to remember his legs. Regardless, he was absolutely, I think his legs were fucked up too. So he had a massive, massive injury load on him. And he developed the fever. His wounds were getting gangrenous. They wouldn't treat his wounds, and there were 2 Serbian doctors that came over and helped him, and somehow with not much medication, because antibiotics did not exist in 1943. They did, but they might have, I'm not sure, in 43. But maybe in 45 they had some very minimal penicillin. It was probably more like, I forget what the name of that was, but it was something similar. Anyways, I can't remember the name of it. What was that? It's a powder that they used to put into the wounds. I forgot the name of it right now. But anyways, it helped some. Those 2 Serbian doctors saved his life but couldn't protect him. And then they took him, I guess in around 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something. I think it was about a month. And they took him, and he was still extremely injured. And they had a metal plate in his head also, I forgot to tell you about. They took him to a place there, a POW camp, where he, under difficult conditions, he survived, and then they moved him, and they put him on a ship to get him out, more along a Prussian area. He went over, I forget the name of the sea, but they took him a ways. And the ship, they put him in a dark holding cell with something like 200 other men. And they barfed and they threw up and all this kind of stuff. They had no food, no water, and nothing for 4 days. And some of the men died, and some of them became permanent vegetables. And he survived this, which is amazing in itself, especially he had that damage to his body. They he stayed there for a bit, and he was there for like 16 months. And then the Americans and the Russians were approaching, and that was not always good news for the prisoners, because the Germans knew that they would be found out that they broke the Geneva Convention, and that everyone in that camp, from the guards to the overseeing women that were also German women that were guards, many of them were hanged. I don't know if you know that or not. Many of the female guards at these concentration camps were hanged, including 19-year-olds. I know, I remember seeing it, and I know about it. So what they did was, and this is the thing that's the most incredible, and then we're going to cut it short. We're going to cut it here. They had to leave by foot. In the winter in Germany, they said the snow came up to their hips occasionally, but there was lots of frozen rain and cold rain and snow and all of this. And they marched these soldiers 1,000 kilometers, which is 596 miles, is what they said. It's, if you fell behind, they shot you on the spot. There was no negotiation on this. They couldn't wait for anyone. It was simply unbelievable. A 1,000-mile walk with these kind of horrendous injuries to him. I can't remember what was wrong with his legs, but I'm almost certain they were all fractured in multiple places, and his arms were completely wiped out. It's the greatest survival story in the world. Now, according to this, the book came out in 2023, I believe. It may have been 22. You can check. And it's called Tailspin. So you can check it out for yourself. Anyways, I just figured I'd bring that to you. Greatest story of survival I have ever seen in my entire life. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Take care, folks. Tune in, subscribe, be nobody, but I'll do my best to entertain you with some highbrow stuff, okay? I think that was a pretty amazing story. Take care, and I will see you maybe later, maybe tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.